I welcome you all. Hello, am I audible? So,
Yes, please start.
I welcome you all on this second day of this auspicious international conference on global trends in English language, literature, and linguistics. This is the second day of the presentation session, and before I start with the third presentation session of this conference, I would like to tell you about the organizing institutions. Research Culture Society, School of Language, Literature and Linguistics, Scientific Research Association, English Literature Club. Objectives of this international conferences. So I would like to start with this Research Culture Society and tell about this host of for this conference was sponsored by RCS, is a government registered scientific research organization. This society is working for research community at national and international level to impart quality and non-profitable services. And next, we have the School of Languages, Literature and Linguistics. It was established in 2021 and transforming literature and languages throughout the teaching practices to bachelor's, master's, and doctoral research, all level learners, mainly Russian, Estonian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian languages are taught as a medium of study at the school. English is a less spoken language in the school, so it is at the learning stage level, developing language in the school. Second, we have Scientific Research Association, which is working to promote scientific study research at international level, also contribute with the other research organizations for the educational research events. Next, we have the English Literature Club. This club is the group on WhatsApp and Telegram apps, includes literature, research, and academicians for sharing literature, linguistics, and English language related information and knowledge. With the as far as the objectives of this international conference is concerned, it is to identify the trends of literature, linguistics, and teaching languages, identifying various knowledge forms of literature and linguistics, analyzing the trends of literature, linguistics, and teaching languages. So with that, I move on to the presentation session 3 of the second day. And with that, I would like to introduce the chair session of this presentation. To start with, the first chair session person is Dr. B. Ajanta Parthasarthi, Assistant Professor of English, and she is Ramasamy Naidu Memorial College, Tamil Nadu, India. Next, we have Dr. Shadan Jafari, Associate Professor of English, Department Agra College, Agra, UP, India. And lastly, we have Dr. J.A.H. Khatri, Assistant Professor, School of Liberal Studies and Education, Navrachana University, Vadodara, Gujarat, India. So with that, I call upon our first presenter of the third session. Uh, she is Shivani, and the title for the presentation is Satyavati, a Transformed Woman, a study of Kavita Khanis, the Fisher's Queen dynasty. Please assert yourself if you are present, Shivani.
Yes, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. You can share your screen, and if you have a PPT, you can share your screen and directly start presenting. Yes.
Okay. Am I audible there?
Yes, please start your presentation now.
Okay. Respected chair members and all participants, good morning to all of you. I'm grateful to the organizing society who gave me the opportunity to presenting a paper in international conference on global trend in English language, literature, and linguistics. I'm Shivani, a research scholar from Gurukul Kangadi deemed to be university. The title of my presentation is Satyavati, a Transformed Woman, A study of Kavita Khane's The Fisher Queen Dynasty. Here is the outline of my paper. About the author, abstract, introduction, key point, transformation of Satyavati, research question, and conclusion. Now I am moving to the next slide. This is about the author, Kavita Khane. Kavita Khane, she born in the 5th of August 1966, is an Indian writer. She is known for writing mythology fiction. She is a former journalist and the best-selling author of 6 books. She is considered a revolutionary force in Indian writing. A senior journalist with a career over 2 decades in Meghna and DNA, she quit her job as assistant editor of Times of India to devote herself as a full-time author. Kavita born in Mumbai, her childhood spent largely in Patna and Delhi, and currently she lives in Pune. Here I would like to start with a question. How Kavita Khane delineate the character of Satyavati in her novel? There is a quotation. I learned to love like a man, to love without a feeling, and I shall never forget this lesson. The moment when you pronounce the name of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, the great epic of India, immediately the female character like Kunti, Draupadi, Gandhari, Sita, Kausalya come to our mind. Much work has been devoted to them. But it is said to know that there are many female characters who are no less than important to them, and they have not been given due place in literature. So Kavita Khane is a fictional writer who crystallizing the character and give them the modern look through her retellings. In this paper, I am studying the transformation of Satyavati through her journey from an abandoned fisher girl child to a grand matriarch of Kuru dynasty. Introduction. In Mahabharata, Satyavati is the second wife of King Shantanu and the stepmother of Bhishma, mentioned with various names like Gandhavati, the sweet-scented one, Yojana Gandha, the one who scattered her sand from the Yojana all around, Matsya Gandha, a girl with fishy smell, Kali, and Desai. It is the transformation of Satyavati. She was abandoned as a baby girl by her father, King Uparichar Vasu. He said to the fisherman, I shall keep the boy, you can have the girl. So she was brought up as a mere fisher girl with her maternal uncle Dasraj, who is a fisherman. Etymologically, the meaning of the Satyavati means the truthful. Satya means veracity, a virtuous lady gifted with sharp mind. Hardly anyone know about her real name. She is not much concerning about the dark complexion. She says that I'm Kali. I don't mind my dark skin. I don't want to turn fair skin. Being a very desirable woman, she do not want to marry with Rishi Parasar. She don't want to live as a sadhvi. But she knows that he is the only one who can convert her smell into fragrance. So she asked her thoughtfully, I smell of fish. Can you remove it? People flee from my sting. Who want to make love to a foul-smelling fisher girl? Rishi Parasar promises her and make her body perfume. He said that you will no longer be the sticking fisher girl. Matsya Gandha will now be Yojana Gandha. Your new musty fragrance will waft for miles together and shall entice anyone whom you want. Kavita Khane projected her character is a very diplomatic woman. Satyavati appointed Bhishma as a regent after the death of King Shantanu. She knows that Bhishma is the only one who is much desirable crown prince by the subjects. So she appointed him as a regent until the Chitrangad, who is her son, becomes mature enough to handle the throne. She tells Bhishma what kind of bride she wants for her son. I don't want just a pretty face. She should have enough political clout to consolidate the Kurus as the most influential empire. She forces Bhishma for the abduction of Kasi princess because her sons are not invited to the Swayamvara. And at that time, there were only the 3 princes, Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika were according to her. So though she has played a various role in like a woman, like a daughter, a wife, a mother, a stepmother, a queen, but above all that, she is a very sensible woman. After the death of his son Vichitravirya, she calls her maidenhood son Rishi Vedvyas for performing niyog with her widowed daughter-in-law. Here is the question is, what is the niyog? Niyog, that means it is a Hindu practice which a woman whose husband either incapable for the fatherhood and has died without having a child. Here is a woman who requested and appoint a person for helping her bear a child. So now the Bhishma was not agree with her and he retorts her, you are a ruthless manipulator without compassion and concern. So she reacted boldly and said that a queen. A queen needs to be more sensible than just a sensitive. Now she appointed his son Vedvyas. So Satyavasti forces Ambika and Ambalika for niyog with their brother-in-law. So she was dumbstruck when she came to know that Ambika beget a baby boy, blind with opaque white eyes. Opaque white eyes means transparent eyes. That's why his name is Dhritarashtra. And Ambalika is an albino named Pandu. You can say the pale face boy. So that's why his name is Pandu. Then she invited Vyas performing niyog is once again. Now this time Ambika sent a maid to him who beget a child named Vidura. He is mature enough and he is qualified enough to be a successor, but because of his low birth, he cannot be a king. Now the question of my research is, as a modern woman, she is an empowered, vivacious and self-centered who knows the political acrobatics, but at this juncture, a question arises if she is really an empowered woman. This question is unanswered in this text. Does her atrocious behavior for the woman not hamper her quality of being an empowered woman? And the last one is, doesn't her obsession for successor make her stubborn and remorseless? And now I'm concluding my paper. Kavita Kanit Satyavati is not a subdued girl relying on fate. She makes her own destiny. She holds, I don't worry about fate because I don't believe in it. I'm more worried about mistakes becoming their mayhem. Finally, she realized the reflection of annihilation of Kuru dynasty in the cold water. The entire Hastinapur spin around her madness, her terrible decision downtrodden, which resulted in the Kurukshetra war. Her journey is not easy. She has to face many troubles that makes her tenacious, rigorous, and cold-hearted. This is the work site. And thank you for your attention.
Well, a very nice presentation by Ms. Shivani.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
The presenter is now open for any question from the audience side. If we do not have any question, we move on to the other presenter, Niharika Sharma, and the title of presentation is Marginalization of Men Becoming Women. Trans. Please assert yourself, Niharika Sharma, if you're present.
I have a question to Ms. Shivani.
Yes.
A lucid presentation, ma'am, very clear presentation. But I would like to know why there is a need for transformation and why it is focused mainly and mostly by the women writers in particular. Please share your opinion.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you got my question? Should I repeat it?
Yes, ma'am. Please repeat.
The question is why there is a need for transformation and why it is focused mainly and mostly by the women writers in particular. Please
Yes,
share
ma'am.
your opinion.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, there is a so many characters in our epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata. There are many characters, but some characters, after that, some characters still have been marginalized so far in the mythology, and no one know about that much in those characters. So here is the Kavita Kane, who is the writer of mythology fiction. She had taken those characters who are marginalized, and she uh, faces uh, those gracious fact of her life, who the now do those the we are not
is needed nowadays.
Yes, please continue.
This conference is very important, especially not every teaching leads to successful learning. Sometimes there is much teaching, but with a little learning. And other times there is much teaching, but unfortunately without having any learning. So it is very important to try contemporary strategies of teaching English as a foreign language. In Jordan and elsewhere, we teach English language traditionally. We teach English language conventionally. Accordingly, the English language specialists should look for contemporary strategies that lead to successful learning. So in this research, in this paper, we investigate the effect of using phonetic and phonological awareness on EFL students' prosodic or paralinguistic competence. My colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, or I guarantee you, that the oral message represents only 40% of communication. In any act of communication between a speaker and a listener, between an addresser and an addressee, between a reader and a writer, there is a message. But having a message is not enough. Besides the message, there should be a code. What do I mean by the code? Is the socio-cultural experience that makes the addressee understand the addresser. So in this research, in this study, we investigate the effect of using phonetic and phonological awareness on EFL students' prosodic competence. So the oral message alone is not enough. Besides the oral message, we should make use of the body language, the facial expressions, the eye contact message, and the musicality of the throat. Without taking the musicality of the throat, a kind of misunderstanding or misconception might occur. So in this study, we want to investigate the importance of communicating fluently and effectively, the importance of using English with its pronunciation, the importance of using English with its prosodic aspects, the importance of you speaking English with its proper intonation, because the intonation, word stress, sentence stress, and the musicality of the message, it plays a role in deciding the intended meaning in the mind or in the heart of the speaker. So me and my colleague, Amin Al-Azzam, throughout this study, investigated the effect of phonetic and phonological awareness on EFL English language students' prosodic or paralinguistic competence. So in this study, we have two groups, control group and experimental group. The control group was taught conventionally or regularly, whereas the experimentalist group was taught by using phonetic and phonological information. Because I strongly believe, as a foreign language student, teacher, supervisor, curricula designer, textbook writer, and teacher for BA, MA, and PhD students, I strongly believe in the idea that theories have no value unless they are converted into practice. And the practice has no value unless it is based on theories. So if you want to give your students a chance to acquire English language efficiently and effectively, they should have in advance phonetic and phonological information about the rules of pronunciation and the rules of intonation, the rules of word stress, the rules of sentence stress. So the experimentalist group was exposed to English, but this exposure is accompanied with teaching them the phonological and the phonetic rules of a pronunciation, of intonation, of rhyme, of rhythm, of pause, of juncture, of word stress, and of sentence stress. And before the experiment, both groups sat to a pre-test to decide the actual level of the students before the experiment. And my colleagues, I want to talk first of all about the problem of the study. What is the problem of the study? The problem of the study is that our students in Jordan and elsewhere, they speak English, but with their native pronunciation, with their native accent, and they cannot use the rules of intonation, rhyme, rhythm, pause, juncture, word stress, and sentence stress properly. Therefore, this affects the meaning of the message, and this affects the effectiveness of communication. So the most important thing in speaking is to create a code with the addressee or with the listener. So to enable students to create a code, we should look for contemporary strategies that make teaching English language efficient and effective. So after talking about the statement of the problem, I will talk in brief about the purpose of the study. What is the purpose of the study? The purpose of the study is to investigate the effect of phonetic and phonological information or rules that are given to students and the effect of these phonetic and phonological rules on students' understanding or students' acquisition of the prosodic or paralinguistic aspects of language. After that, I will talk after that about the procedures of the study. What are the procedures of our study? The procedures, we selected two groups, and these two groups were purposefully chosen for logistic purposes. And after that, these both groups were taught, the experimental group was taught by using phonetic and phonological information, whereas the experimental group was taught by using phonetic and phonological information, whereas the control group was taught regularly. And before the experiment, they sat to a pre-test in order to decide if these groups had the same level of prosodic competence or of paralinguistic competence before starting the experiment, to look for the equivalence of both groups. After teaching them, they were taught by the same teacher. The experimental group was taught by the teacher using phonetic and phonological information, and the control group was taught regularly. After starting the experiment, after 8 weeks, both groups sat to a post-test to see, did change occur? If it occurred, to what extent and in what dimension? After teaching them for 8 weeks, they sat to a post-test, and the researchers found out that there was a kind of change in their paralinguistic competence or in their prosodic competence, and the change was in favor of the experimental group that was taught by using phonetic and phonological information that facilitates language acquisition or the acquisition of the paralinguistic aspects of language. Yes, after these procedures, I would like to talk about the findings of the two questions. Yes, after these procedures, I would like to talk about the findings of the study. And then my colleagues will talk about the summary of the findings and the conclusion and the recommendation. The findings of the study, the researchers found out that the experimental group students developed more in the paralinguistic and the prosodic aspects of language. And this might be due to the fact that phonetic and phonological information or knowledge facilitated the acquisition of the paralinguistic aspects of language. I thank you. Now, I leave the floor to my colleague, Mr. Amin Al-Azzam, and after that, we are ready for questions. Thank you very much. Amin. Yes, Amin.
Good morning, and thank you, my colleague. And I'd like to thank you all for this great conference. At this moment, I'd like to present what Professor Ahmed presented to sum up what he presented. Phonological awareness strategy can be regarded as effective for developing 11th grade students' paralinguistic competence. The experimental group students' performance was better than the control group in the paralinguistic competence because of phonological awareness. The conclusion of this study: it might be concluded that phonological awareness is very important in teaching paralinguistic competence. The findings of the study from theoretical and empirical points of view suggested that phonological awareness strategy had a positive effect, enhancing and developing the Eiffel learners' paralinguistic competence. The following conclusion might be taken from this study. Phonological awareness was a beneficial strategy for teaching and learning paralinguistic competence. Phonological awareness should be used in teaching the aspects of paralinguistic competence. And finally, we move to the recommendations. Curricula designers should build curricula in a way that encourages using the phonological awareness strategy in language teaching. More studies should be conducted on the effect of phonological awareness on language competencies, language skills, and mechanics. This strategy should be applied on other language skills. Thank you very much, and we welcome your questions.
Well, the presenters are now open for any questions from the audience side. So if there is any question, please ask them.
Really an exhaustive study, and it is the need of the hour as the younger generations are very much distracted by the influence of media. My query is that will you advocate the study to the youngest students, like students of primary education? Because the phonological awareness should be created at the earlier ages for the betterment of their language. Is
Great.
your answer?
Really, it is a very great question. And you are right, because the earlier, the better. I encourage applying this experiment on on the kindergarten students, or on the students in the primary stage, or in the lower basic stage, because in the theories of first language acquisition and second language acquisition, if you want to give your students a chance to acquire English language efficiently and effectively, you should focus on the best period of first language or of second language learning or acquisition that starts from the age of 4 until the age of 12. So you are very right. And in the future, inshallah, we will conduct another study in order to investigate the effectiveness or the effect of using this strategy, phonetic and phonological awareness, on the fourth grade or in the second grade EFL students. Thank you very much for this question.
Thank you, sir.
So, do we have any other question from the audience side to the presenter?
Thank you, Professor Ahmad.
Thank
Yes,
you, sir,
please.
for the wonderful presentation. Now we move on to our next presenter, as I have already called upon, Sohail. Please assert yourself if you're present, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please share your screen and kindly start presenting. And the presenters are please requested to stick to the time constraints as we are already running late. So yes, you can. Yeah, we can see your screen, sir. Please start presenting. Thank you.
Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, please continue.
Okay. Good morning to all and assalamu alaikum. Respected chairpersons, guests, and scholars. This is Sohail, a teacher in government high school, Bohorda, Ramso, district Ramban, Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. The title of my research paper is Lexicological Analysis of Khah language spoken across Chenab Valley, Jammu and Kashmir. Let me introduce first. Let me just start from introduction. Chenab Valley is consisted of three districts: District Doda, Kashtawad, and Ramban. It is a mountainous area and rocky. It is mountainous and rocky area. Most of the population live in or reside in rural areas, and these people are the people belong from tribal area, tribal people. Uh, 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 After that, come to Khasha tribe. This tribe is an ancient tribe of and Orient, Indo-Aryan tribes. We find the mention of this tribe uh, in great books, great historical books like Mahabharata, Puranas in Rajtrangni, Nilmat Purana, and so many historical books. After that, let me move towards Khah language, or we can say it Khasha language. It is an ancient language, but unfortunately, it is unexplored and nobody has worked upon this. Still, so there are some research scholars right now. They are working on this language. It is spoken in uh, uh, 3 to 4 districts in Jammu and Kashmir, particularly in Chenab Valley uh, of the state Jammu and Kashmir. Now it is Union Territory. Uh, Let me start with linguistic and morphological feature of this language. Khasha or Khah language, it has common features in all the languages spoken in the area, particularly in Chenab Valley or in Pir Panjal area of the state Jammu and Kashmir. The language is an ancient language of Khasha tribe. It has different dialects spoken throughout the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Morphologically, it has some basic roots with Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Persian languages. A speaker of Khah language has intelligibility to understand the maximum languages spoken across the territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and particularly languages spoken in Chenab Valley or in Pir Panjal area. Lexically or morphologically, Khasha language is influenced by Sanskrit, Prakrit, Persian, English, Kashmiri, Urdu, Dogri, and Punjabi languages. It is proved that we have phonetics change. For example, I can give you an example. Uh, we in Rajtrangni, several words are there, Sanskrit words. We have word like Vanshala, which is now called Banhala. We have a sound phonetic change, V which is changed into B, a Sha which is changed into Ha. Next, we have glossary of Khah language. Khah language, common words we can say milna, milno in Urdu, milna, in English meet. In Khah language it is milna, milno. In English we say eat. In Khah language we say khalno. In Khah language we say katha. In English we say talk. In Khah language we say jai. In English we say house. In English we say milk. And in Khah language we say dud. Or in Urdu we say dhood. In Urdu we say maki. And in Khah language we say makai. Or in English language we say man, a cube. We in English language we say a rice, and in Khah language we say tawan. Next, about verb. In Khah language is called Kaar, or we can say it in Urdu Feil. In Khah language, for example, a present form of verb we do have in Khah language balno, means in Urdu we can say dekhna. In English we can say look. Similarly, we have example uksun, mount, chadana. We have other words like one, tell. We have words like write, likhna, uh, karna, do. We have past form at the end. It is understood. The second form of the verb, or the past form of the verb, looked. We the Khah speaker used tu, bal no, bal tu, sorry, bal tu, mounted, uksu tu, uh, tell, told, one no, tell, told, one tu, likhno, likhto, likhno, write, uh, likhto, root, do, just karno, and did, quoth. We have future form of verb. We look, bal no, bal nihes, will mount, uksu nihes, lik nihes, shall write or will write, will do, kar nihes. Next presentation, next slide. We do have numbers in Khah language. Singular form yak means one, di yak means one, khas means more than one. For example, we do have common words mohon, man, man, mahana, man. We have boy, nuke, boys, nika. We do have sheep, 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 gab, gab, gab. We have girl, gush, girls, gush. Gender form masculine, feminine. Gush, girl, bucket, boys, boy. Sorry. We have, for example, kuda, girl, kudi, nuke, boy. We have some ordinal number like one, yak, two, di, chai, three, sour, four, panch, five, she, six. We have ordinal number like which tell us about position, like pehla in Urdu, Sam, pehla, pehla, first, demo, next, ya, or dusra. We have similar in Khah language, last, in English, last, lastus. Next, in conclusion, we can say that this language has some roots with Sanskrit as an ancient language spoken in this very region, And similarly, we do have some roots with Sanskrit language. As per the study is concerned, it has common features with Pahari languages, dialects which is spoken in Jammu, particularly in Jammu province. The speakers have intelligibility because they can understand Kashmiri language, they can speak Kashmiri language, they can speak Dogri language, they can understand the rest of the dialects which is spoken in Chinna Valley. So in the end, I would like to say thank you to the organizers and institute for accommodating me and giving me time to present my research paper. Thank you all. I hope in future they will give me chance. Thank you. Thank you.
The presenter is now open for any question from your side.
Yes, yes. Uh, Mr. Suhail.
Arifa Khan. The title of my paper is Elements of Chance in Paul Auster's Fiction. Chance is a crucial factor in our everyday life since we are unsure about occurrences that might influence our health, economic stability, or personal connection. It is therefore not surprising that chance has a profound effect on human life, as deeply as one's views, beliefs, and other things which are essential to one's plan. In our life, major turning points appear to be ruled by the fortuitous circumstances and random meetings. Chance, I quote, chance is a part of reality. We are continually shaped by the forces of the coincidences, the unexpected occurrences with almost numbing regularity in all our lives. Unquote. Auster addresses the enigmatic parts of our contemporary existence, such as the unpredictable, fate's twists and turns, chances, and coincidence by expressing this. All of these ideas appear in Paul Auster's books, which emphasizes the unpredictability of our lives and the hypothetical restless center around which lives revolves. Auster's style serves the narrative of the weird and the unexplained events, peculiar relationships, and illegally accidental incidents that reveals tragic patterns. In this work, I will investigate chance as a key conception in Paul Auster's novel, in how far he uses this concept as a source in the field of philosophical and metaphysical territory to study the nature of the universe. In order to analyze chance in the Auster's work, I will keep track of where it appears in his stories. Among the primarily fictional works reviewed are The Music of the Chance and The City of Glass, as well as other are referenced briefly. Paul Auster on chance. The author made some thoughts on the nature of the chance and coincidence in The Invention of Solitude as a part of his recital book. Coincidence he describes as to fall on with to occupy the same place in space or time. He gave an example of this concept in one section. During the war, my father has hidden out from the Nazis for several months in a Paris chamber de bonne. Eventually, he managed to escape, made his way to America, and began a new life. Years passed, more than 20 years, had been born, had grown up. He was now going off to study in Paris. Once he had about to give up in despair, he found a small room. Immediately upon moving in, he wrote a letter to his father to tell him about the good news. A week or so later, he received a reply. Your address, wrote M's father, that is the same building I hid out during the war. He then went on to describe the detail of the room. It turned out to be the same room his son has rented. Auster regards these ambiguous circumstances as coincidences to some extent bereft of rational explanation. As he perceives it, not only can one method of looking at it, but a number of perspectives seems to take account of occurrences like chance, destiny, chaos, or unpredictability. They all believe that the logic or the rational of our lives can sometimes not be described, but instead display a rather incoherent and disconnectful nature. I quote, things like that come to me all the time. Auster comments, chance and coincidence is an element of the meaningful randomness of our life, but he also considers the world to be something inside a mystery. A coincidence is a brief flash of the mystery showing its ordinarily hidden face. Reality is a Chinese box and an infinite series of container within container. He states in The Art of the Hunger, the world is filled with strange events. Reality is a great deal more mysterious than we ever give it credit for. Chance in Paul Auster's fictions. The aim of the work of the Paul Auster is to portray today the turmoil and the fragmented reality. In an interview, Beckett says, "When I am saying here does not mean that there will henceforth be no form in art. It only means that there will be a new forms, and this form will be such a type that it admits the chaos and does not try to say that the chaos is really something else. To find a new form that accommodates the mess, that is the task of the artist." No. Unquote. Auster's work seeks to merge the world's turmoil into his narrative beyond explanation. There is the elusive faith and the notion that human life is absolutely conditional on narrative speed. This is why the events of the Auster catastrophes, fatalities always give up life, and how an invention's isolated places produces the improbable narratives. Chance to reflect the function of the living experience for the goal of the stormy truth. It functions to reflect the prior experience of the Auster. From the early inhabitants of the cave to the hundred of modern bettors who throng to casinos worldwide, people have always been fascinated by the luck that actually provides analogies for the uncertainties of the life. Playing a slot machine, purchasing a ticket, or even a card game is a symbolic method to give fortunes or destiny. The music of chance is a noteworthy instance of this. In this story, each character commits his destiny to the chance game, thereby entering the world of the unpredictable. There are two pairs of gamblers in this narrative, the floor and the stone, who are buddies and frequent gamblers, make up the first couple. These two friends have been playing the lottery every Friday for 10 years, and they have been carefully searching for the best techniques to win. Finally, they are lucky since they have become billionaires overnight after winning the lotto. I quote, "The game was always at 7, and week in, week out, we always spent those hours in precisely the same way. First, we would swing around to the corner newsstand and buy a lottery ticket. We did that for a long time, didn't we, Willie? 9 or 10 years, I would say." Unquote. As previously said, floor and stone have good fortune on this side. In fact, given the limited chance of the winning the lottery, they are extremely lucky. Winning the lottery has 1,000,000 to 1 chance of happening. I quote, "The odds are always the same after all, no matter how many times you play. Millions and millions to 1, the longest of the one shot." Posey and Nashi and Posey's situation is diametrically opposed to that of the millionaires. By chance, these two characters met Jim Nashi, who embarks on the road trip to define himself, meet Posey, a struggling young professional poker player. They are doomed to be a sinister ending as soon as Nashi agrees to lend Posey all of his money in order to play a poker's game against Bill Floor and Willie Stone, the couple of fabulously wealthy lottery winners who are supposedly to be a easy prey. From them, gambling and relying on the luck is a shortcut to bad outcomes. Gambling and life are both insecure because a player who rolls the dice or selects one lottery number or cards cannot know if they want or won't, leaving the lucky outcome to the whim. As old people thought, the wheel of the destiny, some of them on the top and some of them on the bottom, are placed that compared to have been compared sometimes. In this respect, we are not sure in our everyday lives of our future economic stability, health. Although we struggle to get away with it, chance and randomness are always present in our lives. Sometimes our faith tells us that we are not as powerful as we imagine. Therefore, we are lucky. Nashi and Posey investigate the causes for the loss in the music of the chance, which may be viewed as the follow-up for their lost poker's game. Posey, a professional poker player, believes in luck and believes that he will be selected beneficiary of the good fortune on occasion. Somewhere, sometime, he believes that the world is founded on a delicate equilibrium that must be preserved in order to maintain a condition of balance. Nashi is accused of upsetting the equilibrium and tampering with the universe according to him. I quote, "He broke the rhythm of the game by leaving the room at an inappropriate moment. The consequences for the destiny of the two protagonists of the music of chance are catastrophic. As a consequence, they lose the game and condemned to construct a wall and a good gesture from the billionaire. Their reactions to the punishment, however, are extremely different. Nashi becomes the only fixed point in a world of chance. Posey's life similarly is drawn by the chance. He relies on his luck, which is in turn subjected to be the throwing of a dice in a poker game. The building of this wall stands for the other world, the one defined by lawful nature. It is as if the determinate world of law and other needs the wall in order to protect itself from the improbabilities of the freedom of the chance. Life in journal, our those cover perfect two dimensions, a sort of appreciable force in which two are unable to impose our own own will, like a poker game, in the sense that one can lose or win. But on the other hand, that determine the world of law stands for a rational and logical part of the world that can explain anything. Elements of Chance in the City of Glass. Daniel Quinin is an author who has stopped writing because of the emotional problem of losing his kid and wife following an accident that resulted to the death of his wife and children. Quinin kisses his usual life. Quinin flip is enough to overthrow his existence and his identity. His motivation to be somebody else is sufficient. He's been a poet and he is detective now. Hence, Quinin conceals behind a phony person his identity is behind the investigator's character. After a phone conversation, he is made by chance to become an imagined private detective named Paul Auster. With Max work as the narrator, he writes under the pen name William Wilson. Quinin, the main character of the tale, claims he is a Paul Auster, a detective who begs him to defend him against his father by telephone. In meeting Peter Stillman, Quinin discovers a young man whose linguistic father, while a kid, used to run his new phone, Sun Linguistic experience till the very end of his adolescence. The career began as an accident of cycle of the events, the opening sentence of the novel showing the significance of the chance. It was the wrong number that, I quote, it was the wrong number that started it, the telephone ringing 3 times in the dead of the night, and the voice on the other end asking was somebody he was not. Much later, he was able to think about the things that happened to him. He would conclude that nothing was real except chance, unquote. The tale is sparked by chance, and the Quinin first move is to change his own identity with a private investigator position. This is the first stint of investigation in which a detective writer wants to play a part by a negative or repressive mechanism of a genuine investigation in escaping from his true identity. Although the opening page of the work suggests that the reader is dealing with a realistic fiction, the storyline challenges the identification of the true narrator and investigator, indicating that their identities are in flux. The selection of the material and action that corresponds in the New York to the postmodern type and the multiplicity of identities are unstable, like the New York City claims by Martin. Auster's conception of chance confirms his status as a self-consciously postmodern author. New York City serves as a backdrop to many of the Auster's writings, and Auster evokes the postmodern notion of urban dislocation in order to complement his fictional narratives, unquote. When Quinin follows his dad at the train station, he is unable to recognize his dad from someone else that he follows them. As Stillman reached the threshold of the station, he puts his bag down once again and paused. At that moment, Quinin allowed himself in a glance to a Stillman's right, surveying the rest of the crowd to be double sure that he has made no mistakes. What happened then? Defined explanation directly behind Stillman, leaving into view just inches behind his right shoulder. Another man stopped, took a lighter out of his pocket and lit a cigarette. His face was the exact twin of a Stillman. Conclusion: the world, according to Auster, is completely chaotic, consisting of random occurrences and uncertainties that determines our fate. Our lives are ruled by the powers of contingency. As he says, no matter how hard we try to avoid it, chance always finds its way into our lives. He stresses the unpredictability of our existence by claiming that it is something that cannot be explained and goes far behind reason. Even nevertheless, Shakespeare and his characters assert that a whimsical power is in the charge of our fate in some situation. However, this is something not explainable, such that his characters appears to be likewise susceptible to the unexpected nature of these allegatory happenings, which cannot find any logical cause. Over the course of this study, the relevance of chance as a fundamental component of Auster's work has been understood. He is a writer who feels obliged to represent reality, being necessary for illustrating chance and the unpredictability of his life. As a result, the characters dive into the searching for the nature of their life and how they handle the odd situations. It becomes into the quest of our inner self, that is into a method of finding yourself in an unsure world. Thank you.
Audible.
Yes, am I audible and the screen is
Yes,
visible?
please.
Okay. The topic is Elements of Sacredness in Don DeLillo. I'm Agrita Chibber, PhD scholar from LPU. There are various elements that depict sacredness in various works. Don DeLillo is considered as the main paradigm of postmodern novelists. The critic Frederick Jameson also asserts that postmodernism has led to extinction of sacredness. The sacrifice has been considered as the major aspect of postmodern society. This has been verified by various critics. Elements of sacrificial violence are present in various novels of Don DeLillo. The idea of sacredness lies in the intersection between communal bonding between violent sacrifice and utterances, focusing primarily on what we call cult behavior. His various works like White Noise, The Names, Mautu, and others depict the elements of sacredness in various ways. DeLillo's characters help us to understand society in a better and clear way. Don DeLillo is considered as one of the prominent writers of the age of postmodernism. The reason why it is considered so are he is more easily understood by the audience and far more accessible. His writings easily connects you with the world and the words on the page. Take for instance this following passage from DeLillo's most popular novel, White Noise. A great echoing din, as one of the extinction of species, a beast filled with vast space. People bought 22-foot ladders, 6 kinds of sandpaper, power saws, and good felled trees. Their sides were long and bright, filled with oversized brooms, massive sacks of peat and dung, huge Rubbermaid garbage can, rope hung like tropical fruit, beautifully braided strands, thick, brown, and strong. What a great thing a coil of rope is to look at and feel. I bought 50 feet Manila hemp just to have it around, show it to my son, talk about it, where it comes from, and how it is made. Unquote. Today, the culture to shop has been fancied a lot. While you go on shopping spree and notice people grabbing different kind of stuff, the staff helping you out with your shopping list, you automatically start feeling like a part of the culture that is currently dominating the society as mass culture through advertisements. Here it would be apt to quote Frederick Jameson's words. Capitalism and modern age is a period in which the extinction of sacred and spiritual, the deep underlying materiality of all things, has finally risen, dripping and conclusive into the light of day. And it is clear that culture itself is one of the most things which fundamental materiality is now, for us to merely evident but inescapable. Jameson correctly writes that today's generation understand culture in a more material way. Things are a way to understand the culture for them. In Jameson's view, post-contemporary signifies culture and religion being treated in form of a material. However, about the extinction of the sacred in contemporary culture, Jameson's views on religion is that simply a part of postmodern landscape. The concept of totalization by Jameson talks about considering a scenario on the whole, not only one aspect. The major postmodern themes are commodification and knowledge as power. Sacred elements should not be confused with nostalgia that Jameson talks about in his works. Abruptly, if we consider sacrificial killing is one of the most basic form of sacredness, in the work Gift of Death by Derrida, registers a concept that society is the basic element of everything in society, and everything is society. In novel, The Names, Don DeLillo uses concept of Derrida using language as logocentric. Jameson very clearly and wittily portrays the concept of logocentric in his works. But it remains for elderly sage and linguist Owen Bradmus, a man hunted by boyhood religious experiences on Tallgrass Prairie, of Canis to identify the crucial linguistic themes of this novel. All I want to do is read the stones, he announces early on. The desire to see all the ancient sacred writings, to read the names of God in their original tongues, will eventually drive him to pilgrimage through Far East, and the madness after he spends time living with the cell group of names cult. Their query, how many languages do you speak, strikes Owen as an initiatory gesture he cannot refuse. For Owen, language is never ordinary. In his favorite stage, it either saves or destroys us. While speculating about the names, cultists use the alphabet to determine their victims, he tells Catherine and James. In the novel Underworld, the character Lenny Bruce depicts These depict some various ideas related to death, oval in underworld. Paranoid about being watched, James writes, bulking high over the road we had just been on was a massive anvil rock, maybe 500 feet tall, dark presence of a power like a voice in the sky. The altar beckons. Then inexplicably, James leaves Tap alone in the car to go on into a restaurant and ask for directions. Our unease about the boy intensifies when James wanders off to the bathroom to enjoy this dark epiphany. I walked through an alley, across a muddy yard to the toilet. It was a terminal shithouse of Penelope. The walls were splattered with shit, the bowl was clogged, and there was a shit on the floor, on the toilet seat, on the fixtures and pipes. An inch of exhausted piss lay collected at the base of the toilet, a minor swamp in the general wreckage and mess. In the chill wind, the doleful shed was another plane of experience. It had thick reek of squattering armies, centuries of plunders, seas, blood feuds. I stood 5 feet from the bowl, tiptoed. How strange the people used this place still. It was like an offering to the dead, to stand there directing my stream towards the Proclaim hole. The domain of sacredness entangles the death and destruction, and the encounter with sacredness always have element of horror, terror, and criminality, concern about human subjects that are damaged or destroyed. That sacrifice exists as the universal mechanism of human social organization, as Girard has long maintained and Derrida has more recently affirmed, raises ultimate questions of whether we as human agents can extricate ourselves from this functioning. Girard would always use, Girard would have us give it and religion up, claiming paradoxically that Christianity marks the exposure and end of sacrificial necessity. Bataille contends that the very denial of such mechanism or the pretense that one lives outside of them is delusional. This question here, but it is one of that gets raised by DeLillo's most disturbing novel to date. We can assume James will resign from Northeast Group as Roswell advises him to before he is assassinated by as a CIA source. The boy Tapp does not die in the mountains and in the lives to write novel of joyous and eloquence about Owen Bradman's childhood religious trauma on the Great Plains. Owen himself goes mad, becomes member of names terrified by the group frenzy yet simultaneously attracted to it. Voltaire mysteriously disappears in the desert, likewise consumed, we can guess, or by the quest. Conclusion. However, postmodern Don DeLillo ultimately proves to be, I would contend with all the due respect to Frederick Jameson, that the realm of the sacred in Don DeLillo's work, and in postmodern work, more generally needs preliminary attention rather than receiving treatment as afterthought or appendage to the linguistic whole, that is names. DeLillo's most profound mediation to date on the nature of language, sacrifice, and making human communal bonds forces us to reconquer a new terrain of postmodernity and perhaps to redraw the map Jameson offers. Thank you.
Methodology. Data collection. Data is collected from English and Hindi. The theory which I use is Feil theory, which is the recent version of minimalism. This theory is given by Chomsky. It argues that the spill out takes place more than once per derivation. PF linearization. Linearization is the flattening of syntactic elements in linear order at the articulatory perceptual interface. Order preservation. In this theory, we see that each time the derivation constructs a spill out domain, a spill out applies, and all the derivation are linearized. For example, do you see the example? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, please continue.
Yes. For example, he opened the box. There are two domains. The verb is in the first domain, and the tense is in the second domain. The issue is that tense and verb are linearized in different domains. This leads to wrong output. In English, the tense is affixed to the verb. As you can see, the verb open, uh, we cannot linearize open in one domain and the past tense marker in another domain. The tense marker should be affixed to the verb after the syntactic derivation is over. The proposal. There should be a mechanism by which the past tense marker D is affixed to the verb open, which gives rise to open. This mechanism may be called fusion. I'll come to the conclusion. The study shows that the past tense marker D is linearized and preserved in D2. However, it has to be affixed to the verb open at the BF component in English. The study proposes that there have to be a mechanism that fuses D in D2 to open in D1 at the interfaces. This proposal may be considered an attempt to explore unexplored areas. We may hasten to see that the existence of a fusion mechanism is conceptually necessitated, hoping that this stipulation would be empirically supported and explored in future endeavors. References, thank you for listening. If
Thank
you
you.
have any question, you can ask me.
A very wonderful presentation. So if there is any question from the audience side, is most welcome to the presenter.
Thank you for. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Yes, you're
Continue.
audible. Please start presenting directly.
Yeah. My paper is based on representation of women flocks in novels of Mahashweta Devi. Status of women in society is very much an issue of controversy, specifically saying the condition of women belonging to backward and underdeveloped community has been subjected to various discrimination. The poor, tribal, and powerless women have always been at the receiving end. Those sort of women have always been vulnerable to every kind of discrimination and have hardly got any kind of recognition and respect in society. These stresses faced by them have always been neglected. Injustice inflicted on them have never been addressed with empathy. Rather, those wrongdoing have been termed as natural consequences. In the morning faced by women of different background. The stories of Mahashweta Devi highlights the plights, humiliation, and sorrow women come across in daily life, and also depicts the resistance put up by the women. The reader of her story gets a clear picture of those issues which have been absent from the periphery of a conventional literature. In the fiction of Mahashweta Devi, the representation of women is intended to show the gruesome economic, physical, and social exploitation incurred on women to gratify the interest of some greedy abuses. Women identity and subject formation. Constraints of society are determinants of the boundary constructed for women authors. It is generally perceived that art form like literature has very significant role to play in evaluating the oppression in political and social form posted on women. But surprisingly, the same art form finds no acceptance, but it is used by a woman author to describe the various structures of violence and injustice experienced by women at home, in marital life, and even in the condition of maternity. The idea behind that is to subjugate the tone which assails the very basis of the hypocrisies of the conventional society. The restrictions imposed on the women is the result of attitude of patriarchal society, which always want to raise discipline on women organization. To accomplish this, first step is to make the women non-existent. The class division of society are very much helpful for organizing such type of immoral activity. The segregation of women in the public sphere is legalized by a elimination of women in the private sphere. Discrimination doesn't stop there, but the categorization of women becomes a stark when a woman enters public life. There the art of writing is found. The very expression of writing through literature is not only a means of identity and empowerment, but also the symbol of resistance, insolence, and bravery, which empowers the voice of women. Raise voice for the voiceless people. In the art of literature, women have exclusively space for them, the much needed space which has always been weakened and distorted by the various social customs. Though within the various constraints, women have raised their voice in various situations, and these situations discovered the numerous potential of women. It was found that sometimes women author particularly reveals the matter needed for change, but dint of the creativity, the authors present the unknown facts of private domain which affects the public domain. Construction of female character or portraying a female in the lead role is a difficult task, because in most of the cases it is found that female narrates the story through her character. The voice of the narrator and the voice of the author get mixed due to social circumstances that suggest the voice of the protagonist have been influenced by social norms. Mostly the stories penned by women author are reflection of her personal experiences. Some writings became the device of raising the concern of their personal experience and establishing their identity. Consequently, such protagonistic surely forecast the vision of the author. Stimulously, the storyteller narrates the condition of women in her surroundings and beyond it is perceived by her. Thus, the development of the story line becomes the reversal process between the narrator and the protagonistic. The story of Mahashweta Devi did not depict the situation of her atmosphere, but they also respond to concern of the women who are vulnerable to insecurities. Those stories narrate the stories of those marginal women who are non-existent in the mainstream of the society. In order to construct a proper storyline, Mahashweta Devi explore remote places mostly inhabited by tribal. Her sole objective is to get a clear picture of the living condition of the most primitive subject of the Indian society. She has also formed and guided some organization which the tribal people to resist the dominance of injustice. While traveling such places, she gets the opportunity to establish a connection with the people on the ground, and that experience also helps us to understand the actual ground level condition which gives birth to the discipline of subaltern studies. Female self and body as a site of objection. The talk on the female body is difficult to carry on in a condition where marginalized, deafless women can't raise their own concern. They are also deprived of a right or own their body. This is very true when women are treated as an object of business dealing. The conversation doesn't end in black and white, but also provides some gray area of arguments. In the stories of Mahashweta Devi, we come across a variety of women cutting across the barriers of class, caste, and creed. From women of tribal society to the women of upper class and caste in her story. Every kind of woman gets her space. The story depicts how every sort of women faces the worth of patriarchy. She portrays the fact that how women are seen only as a tool of reproduction, and the concerns of women have no significance in the psyche of patriarchy. In the story of Best Giver, Mahashweta Devi narrates the story of subaltern woman named Yashoda. Yashoda has been appointed by her family as a professional mother. Yashoda took the job after her husband met a fatal accident. She accepted the job to support her family. She was depicted as a deity because of her Brahmin identity, but ultimately her place in the family underwent a change as she failed to continue the job. As a result, she started getting the treatment of maid in the family. She didn't remain in the position of the goddess. In this story, she was the best figure to help the maintenance of the figure of the wives of Heather family. The whole scenario is quite ironic that Yashoda is sacrificing her own figure just for getting a little amount of food. The whole story expresses how the reproductively of a subaltern woman is preserved for some economic benefits. The idea has been argued by Gayatri Spivak. Such type of sale of motherhood just reverses the sexual class division of labor between men and women. Above all, in this story, the brave financial exploitation of female body has been highlighted. According to her, a female body is always subjected to economic exploitation, which is carried out in many forms. A woman is always subdued in every type of entity. She could be subjected to exploitation as a mother, sister, and wife. The womb of a woman is also a mean of producing economic benefits. Women as women in
summary or conclusion. Please
yes, sir.
directly come on to conclusion.
Yes, yes. In women as women. In Draupadi Majin is a rebellion and activist. Both she and her husband had significant role in revolutionary movement of Indian Naxalite movement. They participated actively in the Operation Bakuli in 1971. The government has issued a warrant against them so they went underground. The lead character of the story was hiding from the police, but one day police snapped her to. That actually shows the fact that a lady is an object that can be exchanged in the context